Hey guys, welcome back to D-Res Gaming News on Clownfish Gaming. This is Neon. We're going to talk about how if you cannot afford a Switch 2, you better go buy a Switch 1. This is according to the president of Nintendo. He's flat out telling you, don't buy a Switch 2, but buy a Switch 1. Given the situation with the tariffs, I have to wonder if the Switch 1 is going to cost like, $500. But we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about how Switch 2 games, because I'm sure you want to know, Switch 2 games still taste bad. Yeah, so for those of you who aren't aware, with the original Switch, the cartridges, they put some sort of chemical on it, so it tastes bad, so kids don't eat the cartridges. Well, Switch 2 is also going to taste bad. So don't lick your Switch, guys. Don't lick your Switch. We'll talk about that a bit later, but yeah, let's talk about this. This is... Let's see, we got Charlie Intel here from Deserto, and then we're going to go out to the Gamer. They got an article on it too. Nintendo president says if you cannot afford a Switch 2, you can just buy a Switch 1. Just please buy something. Buy something from us. We recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2. That's why we wanted to make another Switch, or we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available. You're too broke. You're too broke. Too broke ass for a Switch. This coming from the Gamer. Nintendo president channels Xbox One's disastrous launch messaging when defending the Switch 2 pricing. And yeah, we still know how much the Switch 2 is going to cost because of the tariffs. They said $450 and $500, but that was before the the Trump tariff, and now it could wind up being like $600. But if you're too broke, we don't want you anyway, because we just want people, we want the whales, we want the people that can afford the $90 games. So Nintendo president Doug Bowser has a message for people who can't afford a Switch 2. Bowser told those gamers that's what the various models of the original Switch are for. The message has reminded people of Xbox, telling people to stick to the 360 during the Xbox One reveal. Yeah, that wasn't a good look, but they, look, to be fair, Nintendo's always done this. I remember when the Super Nintendo came out, Super NES, the SNES, and they still had the NES available. And then they had the really cool top loader NES available, and it was like a bargain price. And Sega did this too, where they had previous generations available, and they still made games for them somewhat, but you could tell that they're trying to push everybody over to the new console. And I don't think they're going to be making a ton of, or at least not first-party games. They're not going to make a ton of first-party Switch 1 games after the Switch 2 comes out. They're going to be putting everything into Switch 2. Some indie developers maybe, but Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser has been trying to help everyone understand why the Switch 2 was priced at $450 in the US. Bowser previously explained that tariffs had nothing to do with it, and while speaking with the CBC, the Nintendo boss told those who won't be able to afford a Switch 2 to just keep playing the original Switch. Wow. We recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford a Switch 2. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available. Bowser is presumably trying to highlight that the original Switch will continue to receive support long after the Switch 2 is released. However, that's not how some have taken it. You're too poor. We don't want you. Yeah, I would have phrased that differently. I would have been, well, maybe I wouldn't have, because sometimes I tend to stick my foot in my mouth, but I would have been like, hey, we're still going to support the Switch 1 if you can't upgrade for whatever reason. So telling people to just keep playing the original Switch isn't the win you think it is. Yeah. In a post pointing to comments shared by Drifting Spirit on Resetera, commenters quickly likened Bowser's remarks to Don Matrick about the Xbox One during the console's launch event at E3 2013 when discussing the need for an online connection to get the most out of the Xbox One. He told people Xbox has a product for those who don't have an internet connection, and that's called the 360. If you're too broke for the internet in 2013. You can check out the comments from Matrick below. You can tell the former Xbox SVP knows he has said something he shouldn't have when Jeff Keighley questions whether the message he's trying to convey is really that people don't have an internet connection. They should stick to the older Xbox console they already own rather than paying Xbox for a new one. Yeah, Bowser's not going to kick himself quite as hard as the Xbox guy. No, he's not. They're going to sell a ton of these. I mean, they could, seriously, the Nintendo stands. And look, I like Nintendo, right? I got my Donkey Kong shirt on here today, but for those of you who are watching the video version of this. But like, I don't need to have this console on day one, but there are people that will pay $1,000 or more for it, you know, just to have it, just to be like, oh, I'm one of the first ones to play the Donkey Kong game. You know, it's, and that's fine. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. Lots of people are going to buy this thing. I don't see this. I mean, do I think it's going to be a disaster? No. I am having flashbacks to the Wii U, though. I gotta tell you. And they thought that was going to be a slam dunk. And there were a lot of missteps leading up to its release. And I have to wonder if people aren't going to be, especially if the price is significantly higher than what people were already expecting. And that price was pretty high for some people. If it winds up being a $600, $700 console for, you know, whatever reason, I think a lot of people are just going to wait. I mean, again, it's not like they're bringing the Zelda out. It's not like they're bringing the Mario out. It's Donkey Kong and Mario Kart. You know, it's like these games are going to be available forever, right? This is again from NME. Switch 2 game cartridges taste horrible on purpose. If it enters your mouth, you'll spit it out. That's the reason they make them taste bad. We don't want anybody to be at risk of any unwanted consumption. Nintendo has confirmed, because I know you guys were wondering, they have confirmed that the game cartridges for the Switch 2 are going to taste disgusting. Nintendo officially confirmed the Switch 2 with a brief teaser trailer this year. It comes out on June 5th, maybe. Who knows? Speaking to GameSpot, Nintendo rep said, we don't want anybody to be at risk of unwanted consumption. We have indeed made it so that if it enters your mouth, you will spit it out. You will spit out the Switch 2 cartridge. He went on to advise curious fans not to lick the Switch 2 game cartridges to see how terrible they taste. When Nintendo Switch was being developed, I did lick it once, but never again. I can't believe that other people were trying that. Yeah, so they use bitter tasting as a denatonium benzoate for the original Switch to stop them from being eaten by animals or small children. Sometimes they're one and the same. They confirm the substance isn't harmful to your health. It just doesn't taste very good. Following the backlash to the cost of new Switch 2 games, Nintendo has explained it will be taking a variable approach to price. It's just they're basically just going to price the games however the hell they feel like pricing them based on the demand and the amount of money they put into it. But there you go, guys. Those $90 games are going to taste absolutely terrible. It should taste like snozberry. You know, I would like to see bigger cartridges. I understand the Switch 2 is technically a portable console. Mine is docked most of the time, I'm going to be honest. But I've been talking about this. I want a retro console from, if it's not Nintendo or Sony, Sega, somebody, give me a nice, big, chunky, retro type console that looks like candy. Doesn't taste like candy, but it looks like, you know, something from the late 90s. You know, 4 controllers, big chunky cartridges you plug in. You know, even if you don't need all that space, you can just plug that sucker in. And if you want to make it portable too, fine. Then, you know, make that your game key or whatever, and you can download that game onto the system. But, you know, I'm kind of over it. I don't need the bestest graphics ever in a game. I just need good games. I'm finding myself going back to retro games more and more, because the fun factor's there. And, you know, say for a handful of titles in the last couple of years, I just don't think games are fun like they used to be. And a lot of it is because it's so damn complicated, you know? So there you go, guys. I would love for Sony to get together and give us like a PlayStation that's a PlayStation. It's just like, this is just a console, like an old school console. That's all I'm asking. PS3, PS4 graphics, that's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta give us. I'd be over the moon. I'd be thrilled. So I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.